Good evening and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance, and coming up, Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz touring Georgia. A campaign manager shedding light on what their strategy could be for the critical southern battleground state. And meanwhile, former President Trump campaigning in key swing states this week. This as Trump confirms the debate with Harris and faces a new indictment in the 2020 election case. In the White House and Chinese state media, both issuing statements. This as National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan meets with his Chinese counterpart in Beijing. What do the reports reveal? We'll speak with a former White House official to find out. And before we get into the top stories for you tonight, some breaking news. Telegram CEO Pavel Durov now knows the preliminary charges that have been filed against him. French authorities accuse him of allowing criminal activity on his application Telegram. He's been released from custody on bail, but is not allowed to leave the country of France. And back to the United States, Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz campaigning in key battleground state of Georgia. They're making up for a previously planned trip that was canceled due to Tropical Storm Debbie. NTD's Jason Blair has more from the highly sought-after swing state.
Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz started a two-day bus tour on Wednesday through South Georgia. It's scheduled to end with a rally in Savannah on Thursday, with Harris scheduled to speak.
We're certainly excited about it. The campaign has invested a lot of money and a lot of time, and of course, to have her come and spend a significant amount of time with us just after the convention speaks volumes to us.
Just a few months ago, some Democrats were voicing concern about winning the Peach State. However, the Harris-Walz campaign is showing that they still think it's a legitimate battleground.
She recognizes that Georgia is in play. The road to the White House goes through Georgia, and the lane to that road goes through Savannah and coastal Georgia.
You have to go there to win that state. Yeah. You have to drive up those numbers.
Harris's principal deputy campaign manager, Quentin Folks, told Playbook on Tuesday, you have to really stave down margins and go places even when you don't think you can win it outright. Current poll averages by Real Clear Politics are showing Trump winning Georgia by 1%. And before joining Harris in Georgia, Walz spoke Wednesday morning at the International Association of Firefighters Convention in Boston.
It was you who built the middle class. And we know that when unions are strong, America's strong.
And for the first time since starting their campaign, both Harris and Walz will sit down with CNN for their first formal interview with the press. It's scheduled to air on Thursday night. Reporting in Savannah, Georgia, Jason Blair, NTD News.
And while Vice President Harris is in Georgia, former President Trump is holding campaign events in battleground states this week. Those very states could decide the election. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has an update on Trump's campaign.
Former President Trump is holding campaign events this week in key battleground states. Now, nothing is scheduled for the former president, but his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, has two rallies today. He's speaking in Erie, Pennsylvania, and in De Pere, Wisconsin. Tomorrow, Trump is holding a town hall in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and on Friday, a rally in Johnsontown, Pennsylvania. Trump said he'll be attending the scheduled presidential debate hosted by ABC on September 10th in Philadelphia. He initially wanted to ensure the same rules as the debate with CNN with President Biden, rules including that candidates' microphones should be muted while the other is speaking, and they'll be standing and they cannot bring notes. RFK Jr., who recently dropped out of the presidential race and endorsed Trump, has pulled his name off the ballots in several states. He remains on the ballots in Michigan and Wisconsin, both of them swing states. Even though Kennedy tried to remove his name, state laws don't allow it. It'll be interesting to see if that actually impacts the votes. Now, this all comes as Trump's campaign added Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard to his presidential transition team. Gabbard is a former Democratic congresswoman from Hawaii who ran for president in 2020. And just yesterday, special counsel Jack Smith filed an updated indictment against former President Trump. This follows the Supreme Court's ruling that he enjoyed some presidential immunity from criminal prosecution. Prosecutors still allege that Trump tried to overturn the 2020 presidential election results. The only thing that changed is that the indictment removes allegations involving his interactions with the Justice Department. Now, immediately afterwards, Trump took to Truth Social, calling the indictment shocking and calling for its immediate dismissal. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
And the FBI provided an update today on the gunman who attempted to assassinate former President Trump last month. The Bureau also providing photos that show the items recovered from the scene. They include Thomas Matthew Crooks's AR-15 rifle, his backpack, and the improvised explosive devices found in his car. Investigators say the 20-year-old became interested in explosives, major events, and political figures before the assassination attempt. The FBI says his online search history revealed a, quote, sustained detailed effort to plan an attack on some event. The special agent in charge of the FBI's Pittsburgh field office says the Bureau still has not found a motive for why Crooks shot Trump during the July 13th campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. And the Chinese Communist Party has consistently opposed the independence of Taiwan. President Biden will soon speak by phone with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. That's according to the White House and Chinese state media about the talks between White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Joining me now to discuss the revelations is Brian Kavanaugh. He's the Senior Vice President at American Global Strategies and former Special Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs. Brian Kavanaugh, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. It's great to be here in person today.
Great to have you, Brian. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan in China, communist China, for 3 days of talks with his counterpart there, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Among other things, the White House is reporting that they discussed the illicit flow of precursors to fentanyl, as well as illegal immigrants stemming from China. What does the U.S. want to see, and how likely do you think China will be to follow through on any of those requests?
Absolutely. So I think it's really important to note that one of the things that we've been fighting for several years now is the fentanyl epidemic. So what I think we're looking for as a country is a massive decrease in the amount of fentanyl coming across the southwest border. Unfortunately, we've had these thin-veiled promises before to assist with fentanyl, to assist with precursors, to enforce different rules and laws in China to crack down on the exportation of those precursors. They haven't materialized to date. And I don't see a real willingness on the behalf of the CCP to actually start making the changes. So to me, the fentanyl discussion point is going to be just a continuation and an ongoing conversation. They might get some promises that they'll tout as successes from this meeting. But to me, the real success is when you see a noticeable decrease in fentanyl coming across the southwest border and a decrease in overdose deaths related to fentanyl.
And to that meeting, the White House announcing today President Biden will speak with his counterpart, the leader of the Communist Party, Xi Jinping, in the coming weeks. Is this a sign of success for Sullivan's meeting going to China? And what does this tell us about China's approach to the U.S.?
So if you go back to November of 2022, the U.S. has been on a diplomatic healing tour with China and trying to repair some of the diplomatic damage. We had a bit of a setback early in 2023 with the balloon that flew across the country, and I think they did some real work to recover the relationship by November of 23 when President Biden met with Xi in person in San Francisco. I want to counter that, though, at the same time that you're kind of in a lame duck presidency. In the last couple of weeks, you've seen the president's schedule diminish tremendously. Vice President Harris is on the campaign trail, working very hard to secure her election for January. But I look at this as if it's like you're looking at a second-term president who doesn't have a whole lot of willpower. There's not a lot of support on the Hill. There's not a lot of support within other governments to really make anything monumental happen. So when you step back and you look at it through all those various perspectives, what you're looking at here is a continuation of a relationship to try and repair any of the damages you've seen done over the last several years.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, what would you expect to say come out of that conversation with all of the dynamics that you just outlined?
So if I'm China, what they're trying to do is really shore up their economy. It's bleeding from within. And you've looked at the real estate market, it's gone almost upside down. As a result, they spent a lot of money investing in manufacturing, and to their own detriment, actually, because now they've over-capitalized and overproduced products, and they're flooding the global market. And now you see countries like Canada is now imposing tariffs on Chinese EVs, similar to the exact same tariff the United States is imposing. The EU is contemplating what their tariffs will look like on Chinese EVs. And I was even reading where Turkey, Thailand, other countries are imposing trade tariffs that they had not imposed previously on China, all in retaliation for this overproduction of products. So if you're China, they're looking for some kind of economic lifeline. I don't see any reason why the United States should be lending out an economic lifeline to China. And if you're the Biden administration, you really need to demonstrate success in the fentanyl crisis. And again, as we just discussed, we haven't had a lot of success there. I don't anticipate a lot of success. And getting to one of the things I missed on your first question with the Chinese nationals coming across illegally in the southwest border, that is a number that has been on a steady incline for the last 3.5 years. And yes, the situation in China under an authoritarian government, it is quite oppressive, and it's probably a mixture of people trying to flee. But in that mixture, you also have unvetted Chinese nationals that work for the CCP that are going to be spying, setting up these illegal police stations, and continuing to do kind of the work of the United Front.
And lastly, in the meantime, you have Chinese state media reporting that the Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that Taiwan's independence poses the greatest threat to stability in the region. What kind of message is China saying about this? This coming out today.
I think China's posture towards Taiwan has been consistent. They view that as a part of China. They view it incorrectly as a part of China. And they're trying to reestablish the norms. And what happens is if you put yourself in a position where you acknowledge what China is saying, you're kind of tacitly allowing them to go in and invade Taiwan. So I think the United States needs to stand firm. I think there's a lot of opportunities for the United States to take more proactive steps with Taiwan. And if China does decide to move, they've been conducting a lot of military exercises. The exercise right around the inauguration of President Lai, if they decide to act on any of those aggressive provocations, you're looking at something that would disrupt the global economy, the likes of which COVID didn't even touch.
What do you make of this type of a statement coming out of these meetings with the United States?
Very typical. China makes very bold statements and tries to assert their dominance over Taiwan. I think it's a message as much to the Taiwanese as it is to the Americans. They're trying to establish within Taiwan a sense that at the end of the day, the best avenue forward is just to succumb to the will of the Chinese government. To me, it's also kind of a signal that maybe perhaps the meetings didn't go the way they had originally envisioned.
Interesting. Brian Kavanaugh, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for letting me be here.
And a battery company with ties to the Chinese Communist Party has a presence in multiple U.S. states, despite pushback from lawmakers. Now lawmakers are demanding action from the Pentagon to blacklist this battery company. Contemporary Amperex Technology Limited, also called CATL, C-A-T-L, is propped up by subsidies from the CCP. The company accounts for a massive 37% global share of the EV battery market, and the Pentagon has acknowledged the company as a national security threat, but has yet to blacklist it, making it easier for the company to conduct business in Delaware, Michigan, and Texas. Senator Marco Rubio and Congressman John Molinar wrote to the Pentagon today saying they have a duty to oppose national security threats such as this. Requesting swift action from the DoD, they say blacklisting the company would not only protect America's military infrastructure, but would also send a powerful signal to U.S. companies currently weighing partnerships with this battery company. And coming up, Democratic lawmakers praising special counsel Jack Smith for continuing to pursue the January 6th case against former President Trump. Meanwhile, Republicans condemning the new indictment. And from small-town roots to the glitter of Hollywood, to the center of the world stage, Ronald Reagan's journey brought to life in a new film, Reagan, which opens on Friday. Michael Reagan, son of the former president, joins us to assess his father's legacy. That and more when we return.